Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
The joy of motherhood is our talk today, and just got to give a shout out to my son, or our son, Jackson, my son, Julian. He's in Rome, Italy, and they are currently, this very moment, playing an Italian-American football game. How cool is that? The joy of motherhood. So even as I wasn't planning on starting this way, but as you were singing, of course, my heart's opening, and I just, let's all just take a moment to give a shout out in our inner words, both to a mother, a really powerful mother figure in our life that might have supported you in growing who you are, and for your children, for those of you who have children or a pet, just give a shout out to that mothering energy we've experienced. And we dedicate this service and this day to our mothers or our caregivers who have loved us, and we give a shout out to those we get to take care of. So the joy of motherhood, that name popped in my head. We're doing flirting with fun, so I was thinking joy, and then I was thinking the joy of cooking. Did anyone use the joy of cooking, or your mom use that book, Joy of Cooking? Yeah, yeah, it's like a staple in our house. So the joy of motherhood, and it's funny because I got it from the joy of cooking, and then just by pure accident, I happened to catch a little video online today. I follow Rip Esselstyn, and he's big on the vegan. That's it. He's plant strong, and he's always talking about plant. That's what he does for a living. And it's his dad, Dr. Esselstyn, who created a lot of the research. He worked for Cleveland Clinic, and his wife got sick 40 years ago, and they were looking at health options, and that's when he really started looking at food and the power of food. So his father changed it. His father's featured in the movie Forks Over Knives. I don't know if you've ever seen Forks Over Knives. So this is what the whole family, and then his mother, Ann Esselstyn, and his sister Jane have a cooking program on YouTube about how to cook vegan. So in honor of Mother's Day, he says, so let's have a 50-second clip with you, Mom, about what Plant Strong has done for you. And she goes, what Plant Strong? She goes, well, what I would really like is some spare ribs. She goes, I really miss spare ribs. Oh, and BLTs. I really miss BLTs. And he said, spare ribs, you mean like asparagus spare ribs? She goes, no, I mean spare ribs. And he's like, and she kept going. He's like, he has 50 seconds, and she's spending a lot of time talking about the deliciousness of spare ribs. And he goes, well, what would you say Plant Strong has done for you? And she goes, yeah, it's been good. And he goes, well, would you say you're alive because of it? She goes, yeah, maybe. She was just not going along with the program at all. And I just laughed hysterically. I thought that was so funny. She's 87 years old and so full of spunk that she's just not going with the program. So this is like the joy of motherhood. When we think of the divine mother, we think of, as Jim said earlier, about the nurturing energy of Mother Nature. Whenever we want a project, if you're working on a project at work, if you have a creative project, if you have animals at home, if you have children, not worrying, but being interested in the world, our environment, we don't make it happen, we nurture it. The divine mother energy nurtures things to its potentiality. In fact, we find that if you force things, it doesn't work. The butterfly, the caterpillar to the butterfly, to me is like the best example that when the caterpillar has gone inside the chrysalis and is breaking out, if you break it out for that presence, which, is just sort of like, I'll take it apart, and it doesn't build what it needs to build, the strength to become a butterfly. It has to do it on its own, and it takes longer, it's a little bit slower, but it develops all the things within us that we need to break free and become the butterfly. And so this is the divine feminine energy. It's anything that nurtures, and so we all have it. So I always want to do this because there's a lot going on in our culture. So we're looking at, in motherhood, so there's divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy, and there's degrees of both, and we all have differing degrees. So we're all a spectrum. So today we're talking about motherhood in terms of the divine feminine energy. That doesn't mean the divine feminine can't also be strong. Like in Hinduism, you have Kali, who's just like, she's a strong feminine energy. But in general, we think of feminine energy is like the Tao. Are you all familiar with the Tao Te Ching, the way? Are you guys familiar with the Tao Te Ching? Okay, just checking. If you're not, please look it up. It's beautiful, and it's about the way, and it's all about flowing, that finding our way in the world as this flowing, beautiful energy. And so we find our way through I just want to make sure you're okay. Okay. Got to take care of our folks. So we're flowing, and this is what I mean by the divine feminine, and we all have it. It's just to the degree we have it. And then motherhood is about attaching. So much of spirituality actually is about transcending and being detached. I don't know how much you've read traditional spirituality, but it's a lot of detachment. But feminine energy is almost the exact opposite. It's all about attaching, connecting, feeling deeply. So that's sort of what women are known to do, or feminine energy is known to do, is to feel everything deeply. We're not detached, we're not cool, we feel your pain. In Jungian therapy, they call it's like a tuning fork, in that the healing energy happens when we can vibrate and tune with one another. And the more we get in tune vibrationally with somebody, that's when we can impact and heal them, or just impact them. So if I'm up here, and someone's down here, we're not meeting, and so there's less impact. So what a mother does, whatever you're nurturing, we connect. That's the feminine energy, is connection. In Deborah Tannen's book, You Just Don't Understand, she was talking about this is what women do, this is how feminine energy talks. It's always towards connection. She said masculine energy often talks to one up, not in a negative way, but sort of like, oh, you've done that, well, and then I've done this, and it's sort of, that's not how women talk, or feminine energy talks. We talk to connect, to vibrate with each other, to feel each other. Oh, I get what you're saying, I hear you, I feel you, and that's where all the tenderness comes in. Isn't it interesting, by the way, that they're looking at why people live longer? There's that recent study that was over 40 years, and what they found, the number one impact of longevity was connection. More than cigarette smoking, cholesterol, all the other rates, not even close. Not even close. That connection. So it's interesting that in general, statistically, women live longer because this is what women do. We connect with each other. We talk about things in tenderness and in joy. Spiritually, we often see the Divine Mother depicted as the place of compassion and mercy. So in Eastern tradition, in the Buddhist tradition, there's Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion. She's there in that wonderful soft energy vibration. Mary is on the Western version. You go to her when you want that care and that compassion. You might have heard, I'm not in that, I didn't grow up in a Catholic world, but I definitely have heard of statues where they see the tears of Mary crying. So it's always this depiction of this incredible, tender, and nurturing presence. And just think if this world didn't have that. Just think if your life didn't have that. I mean, one of the greatest ways to get to appreciation is imagine life without that nurturing tenderness, without those friends and those people in our lives that can care for us and meet us right where we are. How different our life would be. So this Divine Mother is a really important energy. So I had an experience of the Divine Mother once. And I wasn't raised with any form of Divine Mother. I was raised in a sort of liberal Protestant church, and well, when I say raised in, I went to a couple times. I mean, till I was in sixth grade. There was no feminine face. There actually was a woman assistant minister, so I never thought women couldn't be ministers, but everything God was father, masculine. I never thought anything of it, never felt God was missing anything. So I was not one of those, like, we need a feminine role model. Never even thought about it. Did not impact me. I experienced God without any feminine role model. So I was at an International New Thought Alliance conference in San Diego. So we're part of, Centers for Spiritual Living is under this thing called New Thought. It was a great conference, but my friend and I played hooky. Rebellion is a key part, by the way, of having fun. And so we went to San Diego, Old Town. There was an old missionary church, and we just walked in, and their main statue in front was of Mary. And the first place I went to was total judgment and like, do they not understand that Jesus is the reason for the church? Why do they have Mary there? And remember, I didn't know much about Mary. So then I'm walking up, and then I'm just standing out looking at the statue underneath it. And this is purely intellectual. There's not a single emotion that I'm feeling. I'm just I'm in the contemplative mode. And I had just finished foundations class in science of mind, and we had learned that there's this causal realm. It's the origin of all life, and it's always happening. The origin is happening today, tomorrow, always. But it's first cause. And we teach the creative process, how that origin thought, that origin idea then moves into this realm, what we call law, or we could call it Shakti energy, or it's just the creative energy that then moves into form. But first cause is where the power is. That's where the power is. That's where the power is. Just saying. So I'm thinking, oh wait, I'm made in the image and likeness of God. And if I'm made in the image and likeness of first cause and I'm a woman, then there has to be this divine idea of the feminine first cause at the origin point. Not later on, and sometimes we say, well, it's the second step down. No, at the origin point, because that's the divine idea, and I'm a woman. I'm the proof that there's a divine origin idea of feminine. And as I'm thinking this is, again, nothing emotional. I'm just thinking it through. I'm actually, for those of you, I was picturing our science of mind chart while I was thinking about it. That just goes to show how up in my head I was, to remind us that sometimes thinking can get us to spiritual revelations, not just feeling. And as I'm thinking that, the statue comes alive. Now, when I say the statue comes alive, it wasn't the form that came alive, but the energy that it represents. And this Divine Mother came fully alive, and she moved over into me, and I became one with the Divine Mother. Unmistakable. And what that means is a shift in consciousness. I have now shifted in consciousness, and I am one with the Divine Mother. How did that feel? How I experienced it was I became like a little kid. So full of play, so full of joy. I'm just looking around, and then suddenly, I'd never been in a Catholic church, or if I had, it was when I was with a friend when I was a little kid. So I never really looked around a Catholic church before, and I'm looking around and I see a confessional. I've seen confessionals in movies. So I'm looking, look, there's a confessional. And I went beeline over there. I went in where the priest goes. I'm like, this is so cool. And I'm doing the little door thing. And I'm calling out to my friend, look at this. This is so cool. They actually have one of these things here. I'm having the time of my life. My friend is humiliated. And she's like, Harriet, I think you're offending the people in this room. And, kids, they're not trying to offend anyone. They're just playing. And so I'm like, oh, so sorry. Didn't mean to offend anybody. And I made a beeline out the door of the church. And as soon as I walked outside, my state of consciousness shifted back to myself. But I never forgot. So there's two things that are revelatory for me about this experience. One, that the Divine Mother is real. And she wanted to make herself known. She didn't want to be invisible. And two, she liked to play. It wasn't just all tears and compassion and sadness and softness. There was a playfulness to it. That was revelatory for me. But first, I'm going to get to the Divine Mother part, because this is really important. When we say words matter, like I said, I never had any issues with masculine. I had a lovely relationship with the divine. I didn't feel like anything was ever missing, but until I discovered that I was missing. As a woman, I was missing. And so we have thousands of years of writing about, now in Hinduism, and there's some teachings that do include God at the origin as a divine mother, but certainly in Western tradition we do not. And so for thousands of years we have father, 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 father. All our pronouns are masculine. And I didn't know how much I didn't know that I felt a little left out. I didn't know that. I wasn't going around with a chip on my shoulder. I didn't have the experience because I was angry. But as soon as I had it, I realized there's something so beautiful and magnificent to know that I am made in the image and likeness of a she. And that is powerful as we're healing our world, as we are healing our world and ourselves. Because again, motherhood and nurturing, first and foremost, we are nurturing ourselves. Every one of us is growing. We're all growing. We're all a mother to ourselves. We're going to be mothering ourselves until the day we leave this planet. There is that part of us that is taking care and watching over us and guiding and directing us. That deep, powerful mothering energy. So we're in this wonderful mothering energy, and that it's real and it's powerful and it's always been powerful. I found as I was thinking, because there's a lot of talk about patriarchy and oppression, and all of that is true, but I would say it's partially true. Because what I discovered in that moment, feminine energy has always been powerful. It may not have been overtly powerful. There are definitely culturally and in the world disempowered. But to the extent that feminine energy was disempowered, everybody was disempowered. The violence on this planet in the medieval times, it was brutal. We needed feminine energy. Everyone paid the price for that not being more visible. But the feminine energy has always been there, raising the children, playing there. It's the feminine energy that makes things go, because the feminine energy is the one that's there day in and day out. We can come and we can go, but it's that energy that's constantly nurturing our lives, that doesn't just come in for the big moments, but there all the time. When I worked in a psychiatric hospital, I saw, this wasn't male-female, but the doctors were there, and they would come in and they would meet very briefly, but it was the nurses that were there day in and day out, getting into the dust and the grit of someone's healing journey, getting into the yuckiness. The doctors didn't deal with that. I thought, wow, that's very much the male-female energy. The female energy is in it. When you're a mother of children, you are in it day in and day out. You know what their health, how your kid's health is. You can intuit, like, oh, they're not feeling well. You're just a little off. Now, I'm not saying we'll get to Father's Day on Father's Day. I'm not trying to pit feminine and masculine energy against each other at all. We need all of it. But we need to embrace the feminine so much because it's been so invisible to us for so long. We need to celebrate the feminine in our parents, in our own mother, who might have felt oppressed by all the things, the resources that she didn't have, or the opportunities that she didn't have, the difficulties that sometimes the feminine had in this planet. We could see that in our mothers. But the thing we want to also remember is not only is this divine presence powerful, she's fun. She's soft and she's nurturing and she's fun. She likes to play. When I was in college in the 80s, I'm hoping this has changed, but when I was in my psychology class, one of the things that we learned was that the women, the mothers who were at home, or whether they were at home or at work, they did the child rearing, and they were like, did you get your homework done? Have you brushed your teeth? Are you ready for bed? Have you gone to see your friends? How are your friends going? Did you make piano practice? You know, all the day-to-day stuff, your food, your meals. And the fathers, they said, were would come in, and they had about 45 minutes. And they were the play. That's what I was taught. This is just through the research. They weren't saying this was the right way to do. That the fathers were seen as the playful parent, Because they could come in, they didn't have to deal with a lot of that stuff, the day-to-day grind, the mundane stuff. They were there like, let's play some games, or let's talk about something interesting or fun, or do music together, or throw the football. That's a big one in our cultural ideas of fathers and sons or fathers and kids, is going out in the backyard and throwing a baseball. But let's do something fun together. And I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying the same thing recently, and I'm like, because it isn't definitely true for Jack and I, we do both, but they were saying, men still don't know who their kids' doctors are, and they don't know who their teachers are, and I thought, I don't know if that's true anymore. That's an old story, so we got to switch our stories, A, and B, oh, what was the other thing? Oh, yeah, they were talking about it's so hard to be a woman now because you're working full time, and basically the women are still doing all the things at home, and they just don't. It's a privilege to have fun. And sometimes they cross a little line with me. I'm like, I don't know if I believe that, because and I don't even believe the study back in the 80s, because that was a very, like, what play was very narrow, and my example is my own mom. I grew up with a mother who was definitely secondary in status in my house. My dad was the lawyer, the authority, and they were exactly aligned in values. And she did the 3 meals a day. She was involved. She got us to all. She had 4 kids. Got us all to piano, sports, all of that. She was also president of the PTA twice, president of the League of Women Voters. Ran the fundraising at our church. She was full on involved. She was busy, 4 kids, and involved in everything. So she was just as busy as my father was, just in a different way, and she didn't get paid for it. But incredibly important. But the thing about my mom, as busy as she was, because what they were saying is that you can't have the privilege to have fun because that requires a certain relaxation. I don't ever remember my mom just chilling out and watching TV. That's just not her thing. But what she was playful. She loved to have a good time. She couldn't help it. And it wasn't like, I was telling Jack, I don't have any jokes. But she was just playful. She was fun. She dressed up as Mrs. Santa Claus for one person and says, like, did a totally dopey song. I can tell people it's not funny, but when you were there, it was very funny. My dad was kind of a serious dude sometimes. He really wanted to impart certain things to us. And she would just start being goofy in the back. And then he would get mad at her playfulness, which would make her laugh even harder, which made all of us laugh harder. I mean, there is nothing that can ever limit us from being playful. This is why it's important to recognize Divine Mother's first cause. When we align with that playfulness is in us all of the time if we allow it, if we make space for it, if we are willing to play. She nurtured her own self. So in her 50s, her dad was a professional soccer player, told her that it wasn't proper for women to play sports. And when he played soccer, by the way, this was in Scotland, with the Glasgow Rangers, it wasn't for the money, it was for medals. So he also didn't associate it with money. So it was not the way to go. So she was never allowed to play sports. In her 50s, she's mothering herself. I want to learn how to ski. So she went off to ski, and she by herself just went to a mountain. And she was telling me this story. I could not understand what the story, because she was laughing so hard telling the story. She was like falling. I mean, Mom, I can't understand and she's laughing. And so I'm laughing with her. I have no idea why I'm laughing, but she thinks it's hysterical. She's so fun. The funny thing is, she's told me that story now over and over. Every time she can't get it out because she's laughing so hard. Now I at least know what the story is. It's not that funny. But she thinks it's hilarious. And it's so fun to be with people who get such a kick out of life for no reason, over little things. So this isn't about I'm going to get up and be a stand-up comedian, or I'm really clever with jokes. There are people, I love being that. My mom, I like to laugh like my mother. And so anyone who's funny, I'm like your best audience, because I will be laughing. But that's the point. It's not about being so clever if you're funny, fantastic. But even if you're not, anyone can laugh. Anyone can take life a little bit lighter. And that's what I got from the Divine Mother. In all our responsibility, because being a mother is serious responsibility. Taking care of anybody, if you're in caring for even if you're caring for a parent, you're caring for anybody, an animal. Well, first of all, I just have to say about animals, if you have I know there are people with dogs, you can't just be, you love the dog and you pet it, but the dog's going to ask you to play. There's just the dog's not going to settle for no play. So dogs teach us to play as well, but we need to do that with ourselves, to play with ourselves as we're mothering ourselves. We get so precious about taking care of ourselves that it becomes this really serious thing. We get really precious about taking care of our children or taking care of people. We have to lighten up. The universe is a joyful universe, and everything is ultimately going to be okay. As Julian of Norwich said, who was the first person, she had an experience of Christ, and one of the ways she experienced Jesus was as a mother, and she referred to him as the mother. And it's like, lighten up. It's all going to be fine. That's what he tells her. All shall be well, and all shall be well. Everything is going to be fine. And so that doesn't take away the preciousness and the seriousness and the responsibility, but we need them to go together. We need the play and the tenderness and the nurturing and the softness and the care and the playfulness and the hysterical and just being downright silly. And so lastly, I just want to say one way to do it. There's many ways. If you you find out the things that you love to do. I just see Karen there who loves golf. She takes it seriously. She takes her play seriously. That's the way to do it. Find the things that you like to do and take it seriously. But another way to do it that I guess I got it from my mom was just a little bit of a rebellious side. And the spiritual realm is a really wonderful way to find that little rebellious side. Ramakrishna, if you're familiar with him, he loved the Divine Mother. He was a goofball. He was just out of his mind. But he was so full of joy. So I graduated, I was in a practitioner training, so we have the healing arm of our centers are called practitioners, and it's this whole process. You have to take 2 years of classes to even get into the training, and it's 2 years of training, and then you have a written test and then panels. So I'm at the very last piece of the panels. I'm going to Agape, so there's 38 of us. There's a lot of us. And it's this really beautiful ritual to go before you even get to the panelists. It's a minister and some people there ask you questions. So you walk in, and all the practitioners are dressed as white, the ones who are already licensed practitioners, and they take you to a special room and pray you in, and then you go to another room and you meditate, and then you go to another waiting room, and then you finally get to the panel, and it's all candles, and everything's sacred and holy. Well, when I walked in the door, I just saw people that I knew and I hadn't seen, and I'm not in a place of concern about the panel, so I'm more in this is great, this is fun. So I'm just talking, I'm like, oh, it's so good to see you, and I got shushed, so shh, we're supposed to be in meditation. It struck me as so funny, and I just started laughing there because it was so intense. And I'm like, this isn't rocket science here. Let's just chill out a little. And so, and then they didn't like that I was laughing, which made me laugh more. And so then, but finally I got it together by the time I got up to the meditation, and everyone passed. It wasn't, and I think that, but it was just the very, and this happens in spirituality, and I just want to say, if I'm ever leading something, I don't want you to rebel. We can only rebel when other people are leading. So we need it's absolutely true that the everyone getting together and feeling the sacredness is really beautiful and wonderful, and we do want people to be in that vibration, but there is a place for a little bit of rebellion. And so find those places, even in your day. I remember my brother was giving it was her 75th birthday party. It was the only time we ever threw a birthday party. It was huge. And he nailed her because she was the most structured person. Give a clue. I was at her house. I was visiting. I said, Mom, I'm going to have some lentil soup. Do you want some for lunch? And she said, what's today? And I said, it's Tuesday. She goes, nope, I have yogurt on Tuesdays, lentil soup is on Wednesdays. And you could shake it up. So she was very structured, and that's how she raised us, was very structured. But then, if my dad was working downtown, we're going to break it, and we're going to go to McDonald's. And it was we were all in it together. We were breaking the rules, and it made it so fun. We were all in this conspiracy together. So find ways you have your routine, but break your routine. Get a little kick out of yourself of just doing things just a little bit that way you're not supposed to be doing it. And get a kick out of it. Enjoy life. Motherhood is supposed to be fun. It's not all serious. Play with your kids, play with your puppies, play with your garden, play with this planet. Have some fun. Celebrate your own mother and celebrate mothering yourself. Enjoy and in play. And before we go into prayer, I just want to explain. Yvonne brought these beautiful, what are these? Hydrangeas. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to be wrong. These beautiful hydrangeas. Reverend Kathy brought these. I didn't even ask people. They just start bringing. This is the mother energy. They're like, oh, let's make beauty. So I have two. So all of this, these, Reverend Kathy, these are for the moms, right? In the house. And then I have these two things. For everybody, for all the Divine Mother and all of us. So in here is it's a tea candle, and it's a tea candle in the shape of a succulent. So I like anything with light because we're the Lighthouse. And then the succulent is about enduring love. And they even said it is about the mother's love, that no matter what the environment, no matter what the conditions, she stays strong in love. So each and every one of you get one of these, everyone. And if you want to also get one for if you have you're going to hang out with your mom today and you want to give her one, or you have a friend who's a mom, you want to honor her mother, and so you can get one for someone else as well. And then, this is the first thing that came to me with something, a Super Ball. A Super Ball. Yeah, because, so it was funny because I just liked them because they like little galaxies. So then I looked up the symbolic meaning, and they said, oh, it's like they said it represents the sun and the moon because it's round, and I didn't even know, and I got the galaxy. And interestingly, Freud thought balls represented the feminine, and he said because it contains the whole, it contains two sides of everything. And I didn't even know, but I got a super ball that has two sides. So I got a metaphysical ball, but I also, there was every type of ball. I was looking through all of them. Not a single metaphysical interpretation said, they're for fun, they're for play, and that's why I wanted a Super Ball for all the women, because we don't think of women as liking to play. So, and I was telling Jack, hold on.
Come on, throw it to me.
Sorry, that wasn't even, no. Well, we got to be careful because I don't want anyone to trip on the balls.
I wanted to play with it.
Well, that was the funny thing. So I told him about the Super Balls, and he's like, yeah. Oh, first of all, Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs was watching his kids play with this little history, because it's so told. They made like 6 million of these things at the end of December 1965, and then suddenly Super Balls are everywhere. I thought they were eternal because I grew up with them, so I thought they've been here on planet forever. But apparently not. So he's watching his kids play with a Super Ball, and he's like, a Super Ball. Super Bowl, and that is literally how the Super Bowl term came about. So, I forgot. Oh yeah. So I was telling Jack, we're going to get for Mother's Day, I'm going to get a Super Bowl. He's like, yeah. He's like, he thinks it's stupid.
I never said that.
No, he doesn't. He would never say stupid. He just goes, I could tell. We've been married a long time. It's that intuitive knowing, right? Like, yeah, you can say what you want. I know what you're thinking. And so then even when I got it, he's like, yeah, right. But he immediately picked one up and started bouncing it. You have to bounce a Super Bowl. So when you pick one up today, you have to bounce it. Well, I don't even have to tell you. You can't help it. So everyone gets a Super Bowl, everyone gets a succulent, everyone gets a yellow rose, because we love to celebrate motherhood today. So the most important thing is have a day of fun. Play, 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 and more play. Let's pray. Let's pray, which is another form of play. With our hearts wide open, our bodies wide open, our minds wide open, and our souls wide open, we open to this Divine Mother, the Divine Mother energy that is in, through, and as all creation, and yet beyond all creation. She is the origin. She is the origin story of our lives, of this beautiful planet Earth, along with the Divine Father energy, this wonderful Divine Mother, and her power and her play, her power and her play, her power and her play, her tenderness and her compassion, her freedom, her joy, her bliss that has no beginning and no ending is pouring through and as each and every one of us, we open and let that bliss come alive. It is already there. We don't need to find it. It's already there. We just say yes to it. We make an opening and a spaciousness to allow it to dance and play in every atom and cell of our being, to move through every organ and action and function of our body, and dance in delight of the movement, to healing. Any healing that needs to be happening allows it happening in freedom and delight. We allow ourselves to feel the vitality and the sensuality of the divine feminine. We allow her joy of fully being alive in this wonderful union of the infinite and the finite, the absolute and the relative, the dark and the light. She delights in this wonderful dance of all life. And so today we celebrate the dance of life within us, happening as us. And from this place of remembering who and what we really are, we bless our own mothers and caregivers. If they had forgotten what it is to feel joy, we bless them in their divine nature, in their truth of who they are as beings of light and joy. And if they were expressive of that divine light and joy, we give gratitude. And right now we give gratitude for all those beautiful feminine nurturing energy, because we know this world would not be what it is without the power, the love, the tenderness, and the joy of the Divine Mother, as everyone on this planet, as all sentient life, as all sentient life form throughout the cosmos. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In deep abiding gratitude and everlasting joy, we let this word be now, and I invite you to join me now in saying, and so it is.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that